Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, there's nobody, I think, would ever say that, oh, I don't want my life to be fulfilling. I don't want to be happy. I don't want to wake up every day and say, wow, I'm jumping out of bed and can't wait to start the day. Everybody wants that. You have to have the right focus to get that. What are we focusing on? We're going to talk about that today with somebody who is a leadership coach, a published author, noted speaker, helps so many people through her company, Dynamics of Conversation. Iveta Kuzela joins us on the program. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Steve? Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, same here. It's great to have you back. And there's so much when we talk about this thing called the focus. There's so much to focus on and different aspects of the healing process, or even just the process of identifying why you're stuck and how you move your life forward. And how do we unpack that? Where do we begin with all of that?
Wonderful. Yeah, let me clear and let me get some points on how to actually do that. So what we focus on throughout our day is what we experience. That's one point I want to make. So, and we're going to get to that. I want to give you an example of what I mean by that. Let's say that you as a leader have a team. You guys are working on a project. There's lots of loose end that needs to be tied, and so that it creates the result that they're aiming for. And let's say that the team is not cooperating. They are not communicating. There's some constant questioning and reminiscing, and nothing is going well, right? When you focus as a leader on what is going wrong, on those irritating questions, on those flaws that each person can individually bring into the team, onto why is that, why are we behind on the deadlines? Why is it not going this way? You're focusing on the negative, right? You're picking the flaws and imperfection of the team, and you're focusing on what is not working well. And that translates into our action, into our communications, and it kind of sends the vibe to that team of being angry, irritated, frustrated, right? That's what when we focus on the negative, that's what we experience in our life on day-to-day basis. Let's say with example with a couple, you have a partner, you've been together for a long time. Now, when you concentrate on your partner's flaws and imperfections, and you start picking these things and you constantly focus on them, not the laundry being done, messy house, this hasn't been done, this hasn't been picked up. You're constantly focusing on the negative. And what does that happen? It brings irritation. It brings angry thoughts. It brings negative feelings, right? Why am I even with that person? Why am I sticking around? What is this all for, right? It brings lots of different negative questions because that's what we focus on. What we focus creates our reality. And that kind of gets me into a thought, right? Because our thoughts create our reality as well. So the focus and the thoughts kind of go hand in hand. Let's say that we've been taught, create positive thoughts, think positively, be positive in the manner and try to really come up with the positive affirmation and a positive attitude. And that's all great. And I'm glad that, we as a collective are doing that now. And then we're trying to focus on the positive. But what do we do with the negative? Because they always come, right? The negative thoughts always finds a way to sneak in and just kind of get us, unfocused on the positive and get us into, the negative or the angry or the painful or the betrayal, whatever you want, whatever is happening. So that negative still keeps coming, even though we have the focus to do it positively, even though we try our best, that negative still comes in. And I think that instead of suppressing it, pushing it down, ignoring it, that it doesn't happen, I think that there is a way that we can actually work with that to heal it, and so that we don't have to spend the time, energy, and effort of trying to suppress something and create something on the other side. So there's like the constant push and pull motion, right? We're trying to do it this way, but we're sucked back into that negative on the other side. And then we're trying to, refocus ourselves on the positive, and then we get sucked back. And then when you have these, when you have the focus throughout the day that you are constantly focusing on the negative or the wrong stuff or something that is not going well, you are creating negative thoughts. And what we think is what we create. So do you see how the cycle kind of goes around and how it kind of repeats over and over again?
I'm a big proponent, and again, it's not easy, of keeping it positive. And I had some experiences today that were kind of positive, little tiny things like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I got that done. That was so easy. I had to take care of something at the bank. And then I did something else. Oh, that was easy. I'm moving forward. This feels really good. Now, talking about a business situation, that's where we started. So let's go back to that for just a moment.
Uh-huh.
Let's say, and it's gonna happen. Negative situation comes up. You didn't meet a goal, didn't meet a deadline, whatever it might be. You still have to address it. You can't just ignore the negative. But how do you do that in such a way that you're still moving positive?
That's a great question. So first of all, you need to be aware of that fact that you are actually concentrating on the negative, right? And it can be seen in the language. When you listen to yourself and what you're saying, it can be a great indicator. Oh yeah, I'm upset with this person, or I am frustrated with that person, or I'm irritated with the whole team because nobody did anything. And so realizing that this is the focus where I'm putting my thoughts and my effort and my action into, that's a first step. Now the second step is to dig a little deeper and find out, well, why is this happening? Is it because maybe I'm not putting a clear guidelines onto what is expected? Maybe there's something with the communication that there is some kind of a barrier that I'm not clearly communicating what I expect in my team to do. Or when, let's say, your team is, trying to ask you something and you're not really clearly listening to what they're asking. And if those questions keep repeating over and over again, then there is something that you might not hear that they are trying to tell you. So really accepting that we all have flaws and imperfections, that we all need to work with them instead of pushing them away and trying to pretend that they're not there. We can actually, instead, we can work with them, right? To find a better way, to find a different solution.
I have a new mantra in my journey, even in the past year and a half, and it is nothing surprises me. So I guess I'm prepared for when things crop up because it's gonna happen. Previously, I would go into not freak mode, but it'd be like, "Why are you kidding? Like, how did that happen? What about that? Oh my gosh!"
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Now it's just like, all right, well, that, that's a bummer. Let's fix that and move forward. Just, I
Right.
think if you have a different mentality, I know that's what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that everything is, sunshine, roses, lollipops, and butterflies.
Rainbows and unicorns and all that. Absolutely, it's not. Yeah.
But it's just a different way to react to certain things where, if somebody did something that, they made an error, something happened along the way, you focus on it, you fix it, and you always come back to positive. It's almost like a quick pivot. Fixed, back to positive. I think if we look at it
Absolutely.
that way, instead of dwelling on the negative, it's like, what if this happens again? What?
Yep.
It's going to happen again, to your point, Iveta, because you're bringing it on. It's almost like you're asking your subconscious mind to say, yeah, let's have
This
another
is what
mistake.
I want. Bring it
Right.
back here. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
exactly because we are like reliving the past, and we bring that by constantly thinking about it and focusing on it. We're bringing into a reality which ultimately creates our future.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. So, what are some of the other things when we want to focus on moving life forward, focus on the positivity? What else is on your list?
All right. This is my favorite part. So I always ask my clients, what is it that you keep thinking about and it's in your past? And the reason I ask that is because when we think about something very specific and then we keep constantly thinking about it and bringing it into our present moment, that means that experience, the situation, or the people involved did something significant to us that we are remembering that, right? We are constantly dwelling on it. And there probably was some kind of a wound created, like an emotional wound that was created, right? Because it was significant enough for us to think about it and keep thinking about it and bringing it to our life. And this is where I want to kind of stay here for a little bit, because if it's significant enough for you to give it a thought and bring it here, that means there is an emotional wound. And I want to stop here, and I want to first talk about, can you think of your latest physical wound that you had, an injury, whether it was a fall, cut, broken bone, some kind of a physical injury. So think about that. Now, what did you do? You probably tried to heal. You gave yourself some rest. You took it easy. You took care of your body. You really did your best to let the wound, the physical wound, heal, right? And that's kind of how we, naturally how we're set up. We take it easy and we really take care of ourselves. But when it comes to our emotional wounds, we don't really do the same thing.
No.
We just kind of let it slip, let it by, suppress it. We try to remove it from our reality. And we're just like, okay, I'm just going to move on. It will be fine. I'm just going to forget about it. And if it comes up, I'm just going to push it back down where it came from, and I'll just going to move on, right? But it doesn't work that way. If you have the thoughts about the situation or a person or something that happened to you in a past, and you bring it into your present moment, and you ultimately creating a future with it, then there is a wound that needs to be healed. Because I believe that it's much easier to heal the wound so that the negative thoughts or the sadness or the pain doesn't come back anymore, so that we don't have to deal with it for another 20 years, right? And so lots of people try not to do it because it is painful, and it can be painful. That's why lots of us are trying to push it away, because we don't want to experience again. Yet we spend so much time, effort, and energy, pushing it away.
Question.
Yes.
When we have a physical wound, we usually know what it is. Broke a bone, got a bruise, sprained an ankle, whatever it is. With the emotional wounds that we have, that can go back to our childhood, we don't know. What if you don't know? What if you haven't identified it yet? Let's say, back to that, example, let's say somebody, owner of a company, flies off the handle every time somebody makes a mistake. Maybe there's something in that person's past, that from their childhood, maybe when he or she did something, their parents would blow up on them, and that was the learned behavior. How do you identify things that may be limiting you or causing things, emotional wounds from the past?
I got you, Steve. Yeah, that's a great question. I like to think of it as an onion. We have many layers, right? And the childhood, that starts when the onion is small, and we just keep adding layers and layers and layers. And when it comes to recognizing there's something that right away. Like when somebody took a credit for your work, right away who that was. You know that you were betrayed, you were stabbed in the back, somebody else took the credit for the things that you worked on very hard. So these things are clear, right? Exactly. But there are things that they are layered in that onion. And sometimes we cannot dive deep straight into the middle of the onion and just pull stuff out. You need to work with the layers that we have. And I always say, let's just start peeling the layers, and we'll see where it's going to lead us. Because sometimes you won't be able to recognize what is the actual root cause of the triggers, or why you feel or do things certain way, until you unlayer what is in front of it, what is before that center. So it really is like just peeling one layer off of another. And usually we start with the most common challenges that people have, because all that, like you said, the childhood trauma, something that parents did to us, and just kind of translates and filters everything through that. Well, we usually start with like the most outer layer, with the most recent challenge or problem that someone face, because it usually is associated with it, but we won't get to that until we remove the outer layer first. So I usually start with what is bothering you, what is keeping you stuck, what is the latest thing that you feel is preventing you from moving forward and reaching your next level of success. And then we just start digging and slowly peeling the layers off.
And that
But
is
I
truly
want
something that you do?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And I want to talk about the betrayal, and I want to talk about the things that are super clear, and you know exactly where the pain or the anger or the frustration and bitterness is coming from. When you have an emotional wound that you know that somebody caused, something, and it created an outcome that was unnecessary and changed your life, upside down and inside out. I want to talk about that. Taking somebody else's credit for a project, or cutting somebody off, or even in a marriage, like somebody did something very bad,
Sure.
and you know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So you know that the wound came from a specific person or a specific situation. Now, you know that it's significant enough because you keep thinking about it and you're going back to the past and to dwell on it, or you it's in your stories. It comes out. Do you remember when this person did this to me? Do you remember that what happened when and so it comes out in our stories, in our conversations. And when we can address that pain, and when we can actually heal that emotional wound the same way we would do our physical wound, we take care of the negative thoughts, the negative, the sadness, the bitterness that is associated with it, and it doesn't come to our reality anymore, and it's not part of our future. And the one way that I really like to go about this is by forgiving to that person for what they did to us. Forgiveness. I know the word can bring many different feelings to different people. I know it could be super easy for some, and it could be one of the hardest things that anyone can do. So it is a little touchy, could be, but I believe that when you actually take that time and you sit with the emotion that you are trying to avoid, and you sit with the pain, and you actually process it, you consciously process it, instead of letting it run on an autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
and constantly dwelling on it, you are actually taking charge. You are manually controlling that, and that gives you the advantage of releasing it and letting it go.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So, few things here to acknowledge when you're forgiving. And let's say we're going with your example. Somebody did something horrible. Maybe somebody very close to you. It could be a marriage, whatever it may be. You're not condoning what they did. You're forgiving them so that you can move forward. And sometimes I think we have to look at it this way, in that they already moved on. They already did it. Maybe they weren't the greatest person after all. They already did it, and they're already off in their direction. You're allowing them to control you and your emotions by getting continually angry or hurt or whatever it might be. That all being said, and by the way, rewind. I actually did hypnotherapy for forgiveness.
Oh,
Didn't
how
even
was
know it
it?
existed.
Uh-huh.
Impactful. I will say it was one session, and there was a tech issue at the very end. So I only did like 35, 40 minutes, and was supposed to go a
Uh-huh.
little bit longer, but still, it was all there. Um, how do you process that feeling, that emotion, and move it off your plate or move it off your mind when it pops up?
That's a great question. Steve, like you said, it's not about letting them off the hook. It's not about minimizing the pain and what they did to you. It's not about dismissing the behavior and the outcome that it happened, because they did something to you. And it's not any of these things. And lots of people actually feel that way, that, if I'm going to forgive, I'm letting them off the hook. And it's not really, like you said, about them. It's about you letting go of the pain. It's about you letting go of that grudge. It's about you clearing your heart so that there is more space for something else to come, something better,
Really
something
good point.
different.
Really good point. Really good point. Because you can't take any more in until you get rid of it and flush it out. And
Yeah.
that yeah. If there's any reason to forgive, there it is.
There it is. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Yeah. Is
Yep.
there a process for that? Is this something that we should be doing?
There is, I have a whole chapter dedicated to forgiveness in my book, The Map of Truth, A Journey to Joy workbook. I dedicated a whole chapter because right now you and I were going to touch on few tips and ideas how to go about it. But if you are looking into, really finding ways to get into the depth on this, I suggest, getting the book on Amazon. But what I suggest is, first acknowledge that you actually want to go. It's actually first accepting the fact, right? Before you can go and start changing anything, you have to see it and you have to accept it that this is what you want to do. And you want to do it consciously. So when I say, okay, this person has been bugging me because of what they did to me, and it's been going on for 10 days or a year or 10 years, I'm going to take the effort to actually let go of it. So just by taking that conscious approach to it, like this is what I want to deal with, and this is what I want to get rid of, it's that it brings a different energy to it. It's not coming from the space of, oh, I should forget, but it still hurts and it's still painful and I don't know how. When you say, okay, I want to do this, I usually ask first thing, how deep the wound is, how long it's been open, because every time you think about that person, or every time you encounter with that person, or every time you have a negative thought or sadness, you literally open up the wound, right? It never has the time to heal. And it stays open. And every time you think about it, the wound bleeds and you are hurting, your heart is hurting, you're aching. So first, I always ask how deep the wound is. How long have you been thinking about it? When did that happen? And based on the deepness or the severity of it, we move forward. Sometimes you need to take baby steps. You cannot just, because it's been in your mind for so long that you cannot just, do this and it suddenly, magic wand, it suddenly disappears, right? That doesn't work that way. Sometimes you just have to work your way up towards it. So what I do is, instead of saying, oh, I'm gonna be, super positive and I'm gonna forgive that person, I start to say neutral stuff. So when you start to refer to the person or to that thing that happened, and you create stories, do you remember this? And then, do you remember how I feel? And you know what happened? In those conversations, start using a neutral language. Instead of pointing what was wrong and how you felt and what was the cause of it, start using a language that is neutral, that is not bad, not good. It's on a neutral ground. That way, you stop bringing the negative feelings back into your life. That's the first thing. And then second thing, I like to, when the wound is like deep and really, really cut deep, I like to use like a visualization where you start just putting into your mind a thought and an idea that, well, how would that look like if I will forgive that person? I sometimes do pro and cons. How is my life going to look like if I'll forgive this person? And how is my life going to look like if I don't? Right? Just maybe putting these two together so that you can see it in front of you. Hey, look, my life could be much more joyful because I wouldn't be constantly thinking about it. Or every time I would see that person, my hair would stood up, right? So you can do the pros and cons. You can start neutral language. You can try to visualize how would that look like if I would come up to that person. Or you don't even have to come up to the person and talk to the person. You can write a letter. You can just put everything that is in your head, everything that you want to tell that person, just write it all down, process the emotions, right? That's the thing that lots of people push them away from forgiveness, because they don't want to feel the pain that is associated with it, right? And that's what stops
I
them.
don't want to stop, but we're almost out of time. We have to talk about the
Oh
app.
my God, that's so fast.
I know. And I'm going to say one final thought for today on the forgiveness thing. Sometimes I believe it can be impactful when you acknowledge that whatever this person did, it's because they have issues that are unresolved. Because I don't believe people do things just to be bad. They have things going on, maybe their childhood. Same thing if you look at criminals. I'm not cutting anybody slack here, but their upbringing, whatever happened in their childhood, whatever's in their subconscious may have taken them down that path. We could just go on to forgiveness, maybe do part 2. I don't know, but
maybe we will.
I had a feeling. Yeah, and it's so important. You just launched a brand new app, Iveta. Tell us about that.
I have, and I'm super excited to tell you the app is live right now. You can find it in Google Play. When you go to new tab for app, the app is called Better Man from Inside Out.
Oh, and this is the app for guys. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's for men only. I love to work with men. I really do like to work with men for various reasons. And the fact that there is not as much support when it comes to, getting guidelines and tips on how to, create something better for yourself. So you're not stuck in the constant cycle of, it's all bad. It's all, for nothing. So I decided to create an app for men. I have lots of free stuff that they can, download and look at and read. I also have a mini course there that I launched with the app that helps men to level up the story of who they are.
I love the concept. What's the name of the app again?
Better Man from Inside Out.
I will be checking that out.
Yes, please. That would be awesome.
That's fantastic. Your website, Iveta, tell us what that is.
Yes, it's dynamicsofconversation.com. And I help leaders create their next level of success. So if anybody is interested to really create a cornerstones of their foundation so they can move to the next level, then reach out. I have a unique approach that I work with my clients, and really it's tailored to my clients' needs, to their persona, to their desires, and it's all holistically combined together to really bring the results that they want.
So important. Everything we're talking about today, we squeezed a lot in there, but all of it can literally change your life once you identify it, heal from it, and move forward. I've had a great having you on. I appreciate you and look forward next time we get a chance to talk.
Me too, Steve. I will actually see you next week.
Yes. And
same time.
I got to go. I got to download an app if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yes, you do that.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes. and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.